Thanks for joining us today on the What Podcast, helping you to support local, use local and buy local. Letting you know what's happening, what's on and what's on offer in the local area. The What Podcast.
Welcome to the What Podcast. Thanks for watching. My name's Liam Stone and the What Podcast is brought to you by whatoffers.co.uk, a local platform dedicated to supporting local businesses. So get behind our campaign to support local, use local and buy local wherever you are. Now, today's show is sponsored by Carlucci, the oldest Italian restaurant in Dunfermline. So if you fancy some authentic Italian food, then head down to Carlucci's in Dunfermline High Street and you can get great food and service. Or you can also download their app and get 50% off your first order. And they're also doing special offers for 20% off their lunch menu. Now, today's show, what I want to talk about is businesses in Scotland in general. Just having a look at the few stats that, were quite shocking to be fair. But that's what we do. So we want to get back, have a bit of a chat about that. But before we go into that, I just wanted to remind you that the What Wednesday Winner competition is still open for a few hours. So make sure you head over to Facebook and you can enter by naming a business that you love. And if you win, you get to spend 50 quid in that business. So you can tag as many businesses as you want, and every business that you tag, you get an entry for each one. So head over to Facebook and join in the competition there to try and beat our next What Wednesday winner. Now, as I say, I wanted to talk a wee bit about businesses today because I was doing a bit of stat hunting. And some of the stats were quite a bit of an eye-opener, to be honest with you. We had a look at the different businesses and how many businesses are classed as small businesses. We were doing this as a little bit of research for ourselves, and that kind of took me down a bit of a rabbit hole and having a look at the overall sort of marketplace in terms of businesses in Scotland and the UK as well. Now, the UK numbers generally work out very similar to the same percentages for Scotland. So in Scotland in 2021 was the last time these stats were updated, and this was updates by the Scottish Government, so you can find these stats on their website. But the population in Scotland at that time, as you'll probably know, was just under 5.5 million people. Now, just under 350,000 private sector businesses existed at that time. So it's roughly, whatever the population is, about 6.4% of the population, you're going to get your number of businesses. So, basically there's 350,000 businesses, 5.5 million people, which is 6.4%. And as I say, these percentages work out very similar when it comes to England as well, and Wales and Ireland and so on and so forth. It's generally the consensus pretty much in most parts of the world. What was a shock for me, though, is that between March 2020 and March 2021, just in Scotland, now these are estimated figures, but they're pretty spot on, to be honest. We lost 19,805 private sector businesses. Now, when you think about that for a minute, you think, okay, we lost 19,805, so let's call it 20k. We lost 20,000 businesses in a year. Now, I know COVID was going on at that time, and that would have had an impact on the numbers. The general consensus is each year we will lose a percentage of businesses. It's not normally quite as high as that, but it still kicks around that sort of 7% mark, which would have equated to somewhere around about 15,000 businesses or there or thereabouts. I think would where it would be. So we're a little bit higher, but not extremely higher. But nobody mentions it. Nobody talks about it. Now, if you think about it, if a company, for example, a big company, let's say Greggs, were to shut down tomorrow and they were to decide to shut down all their stores throughout the whole of the UK, 20,000 people would be out of business or be out of jobs. Now, if 20,000 people were to lose their job tomorrow, there would be a public outcry. The government would be involved, they'd be supporting them, they'd be backing them, people would be doing everything they possibly could to keep that business afloat, because, let's face it, 20,000 jobs is a lot of jobs to disappear in a short space of time. But 20,000 local businesses go out of business. Now, majority of these businesses are one person, but there are some that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 people, and they disappear. And, the reality is over that year, we probably lost somewhere in the region of about 30,000 plus jobs, just the small businesses going into business. And nobody batted an eyelid, because nobody cared. Because it doesn't seem like a massive impact. But it is when you think about it. And that's why, obviously, we need to help support our local businesses. And that's why we run this campaign, support local, use local, buy local, because we want to try and stop this from happening. It's a reality that we face, is every year we lose local businesses and it's more people out of jobs. I know some businesses are just never going to make it. Some people start a business, they have this idea about a business and it's never going to catch on. And we know these are the businesses that do make up some of the stats, where they say, if somebody starts a small business, and they make it past 6 months, they've got a good chance. But the reality is that, some businesses never make it past 6 months. So we understand that some businesses are never going to make it. It's just because of the wrong idea at the wrong time, or the wrong product, or the wrong price, or whatever it might be. But the reality is that these businesses, when we have a look at some of the other stats, when we think about what small businesses bring to our economy. So we always talk about how we can, we want to try and support businesses, but how do businesses support our economy? How do local businesses support the local community? Well, if we have a look at large businesses, so in Scotland there was just over 2,000 large businesses, and large businesses make up less than half the employment in Scotland, whereas the small businesses, which is 99.3% of all businesses in Scotland, are SMEs, which are basically businesses that have between 0 and 49 employees, or technically, 0 and 49 employees. Then your medium-sized businesses are sort of 50 to 249 employees. But the businesses in Scotland, out of the 350,000, 99.3% of them were businesses that had either no employees or one employee, and that would be, a working director or owner or proprietor. Yet these businesses make up over 55% of employment in Scotland. So there's more jobs in small businesses than there are in big businesses. But what shocks me even more so is that small businesses only share 40% of the total turnover spent in businesses in Scotland every year. Whereas the big businesses that are responsible for less than half of the recruitment in the country, they get almost 60% of the turnover that the public spends. Now, okay, you think, right, well, that's fair enough. The big businesses, it's harder for small businesses to compete and things like that. But the fact is that many of these big businesses, and you probably heard about various things yourself throughout the years with big companies. I'm not going to mention any. But a lot of these big businesses get various tax breaks or rate breaks, and they'll often get various support packages and grants through the government and the local councils and everything like that. We actually done a bit of investigation a year or so ago into rates charges. And some of the big, massive supermarket chains were paying zero rates on their huge commercial building because they've done a deal with the local council, because they employ so many people that they get the rates and subsidised, where basically they pay no rates. Yet a small business who can't afford to pay these high rates don't get any leverage. If you've got a little, you've got a shop in the town centre, You pay more rates for having a shop front and things like that as well. And if your property's over a rateable value, then obviously you're going to pay a lot of rates. And there's no way around it. Obviously, there is a way around it. Become a big employer or a big company, and suddenly you get all these breaks. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. Tell me, let me know what you think. But should it not be the other way around? Should it not be that the SMEs, who only get 40% of the revenue but contribute to over half of the employment, should they not get more support? Are they not the ones that should be entitled to extra funding, extra support for local councils and governments and everything else? Maybe I'm wrong, you tell me. But that's what we want to try and do, is to get the message out there to support your local businesses wherever you can. Buy for them, tell others about them, leave reviews and help promote them, and do what you can, because, they need your help the most. What I see is, if you think about it, how many small businesses do you know? So, for example, in Dunfermline, how many small businesses do you actually know? Maybe 5, 10, 20, 50? I don't know. Yet there is estimated, based on population, to be over 3,000 local businesses in the area. And yet, try and name even 10% of that, 300 businesses. There's thousands of businesses out there that you don't even know exist. And that's because it's hard for them to let you know they exist. It's hard for you to find them sometimes because, let's face it, you can't support them if you don't know they're there. So how do these businesses let you know they're there? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about on Thursday. So make sure you tune in, because on Thursday I want to talk to you about if you have a small business, is how you can try and market your business so that people in your local area, for example in Dunfermline, will get to know that there is more than 5 or 10 or 20 local businesses, and there is thousands of local businesses on their doorstep that can provide everything that they possibly need. So if you want to market your small business, tune in on Thursday and I'll explain a little bit about how to try and market your business. Also this weekend, I'll be doing a brand new once a month podcast, which will cover some of what we've been doing over the last month and what we're planning. And we'll also be having a wee bit of journey back in time, just for a laugh, to see if we can remember some of the cool things that was happening 10 years ago. Now, maybe you fancy coming and joining us on the What Podcast to talk about your business or what you do. Maybe you'd love to share any news that you would like people to know. If you would like to get involved with the What Podcast, then you can email me at liam@whatoffers or get in touch through the website. And don't forget to tune in this Thursday to hear more about how to market your business, and this weekend for our new monthly podcast, which will be a bit of a longer podcast covering everything that we've been doing. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Liam Stone, and I'll see you again soon. Ta-da!
Thanks for joining us today. Remember, whatever you need, head over to whatoffers.co.uk or what.live to see more of our podcasts, and join us again to see what's up next.